Welcome to grade 5 science and technology. So science and technology, grade 5. We want to look at vertebrates. Vertebrates. So by definition, vertebrates are animals that have a backbone. By definition, vertebrates are animals with backbones. Animals with backbones. Now, this is a very big group of animals that comprises of different groups. So because it is a big group, it has been divided into those groups so that we find out which animal belongs to which group. So we want to look at what we call groups of vertebrates. Groups of vertebrates. Now these groups are only 5 groups. There are only 5 groups of vertebrates. 5 groups of vertebrates. Now, these 5 groups are: number 1, we have the mammals. Mammals as the first group. Number 2, we have the birds as the second group. Number 3, we have reptiles. Reptiles, that is also another group. Number 4, we have amphibians. Amphibians, and the last group is the group of fish. Now these are the 5 groups of vertebrates that we have: the mammals, the birds, the reptiles, the amphibians, and the fish. Now in this grade 5, what we are supposed to look at majorly about vertebrates is: number 1, the groups of vertebrates, which are these. Second, examples of each group, examples of animals that falls under each group. Then lastly, the characteristics of those animals that falls under different groups. So we are going to look at these groups one by one, starting with my number 1 here, that is the mammals. So we are going to look at the group of mammals. Number 1, the first thing you have to look at the examples of these animals. Which are these animals that belong to this group? So we'll talk about examples of mammals. The first example of a mammal are the human beings. Human beings, that is the first example. Number 2, we have the cows, we have the goats, we have the whale, we have the dolphin, we have the bat. This group is a big group, so that list is long, so we cannot give all the examples of vertebrates. Of course, we have the cats, the sheep, the giraffe, the elephants. It's a long list, but I've decided to pick this one, especially these 3, because majorly the whale, the dolphin, the bat. And these types of mammals are normally called special mammals because they have different characteristics from the rest of the mammals. So after looking at the examples of these mammals, let us look at their characteristics. Now, characteristics simply means the behavior of these animals. How do they behave? How do they behave during their lifestyle or their lifestyle? How do they behave? How do they react to changes here and there? So all that we term them as characteristics. So the major characteristics of mammals, there are quite a number, but we are going to concentrate on the few characteristics of this mammals so that we don't confuse people with so many things. Number one characteristics of mammals is that mammals, most of them give birth to their young ones. Female mammals, most female mammals give birth to live young ones. Most female mammals give birth to live young ones. Number two, their bodies are covered with either hair, bodies covered with hair or fur. So if you look at the body of all mammals, including human beings, what covers our body is either the hairs or fur. That is common to all mammals. These animals breathe through the lungs. That is also another characteristic. They breathe through their lungs. Female mammals have mammary glands. Female mammals have mammary glands. So the mammary gland produce milk for the young ones. Now, under mammals, looking at those characteristics, in fact, as few as they are, around 4 characteristics, and we will not go past that. Under mammals still, there are what we call special mammals. They are what we call special mammals. So let's look at this special. Why are they called special mammals? Now, these special mammals, they tend to have different characteristics from majority of the mammals. So the number one special mammals are what we call egg-laying mammals. Egg-laying mammals. Now, most mammals should be giving birth, but there are few that instead of giving birth, they lay eggs. So they are called egg-laying mammals. At our level, grade 5, we only have 2 examples of that. That is dark-billed platypus, and the spiny ant eater. The spiny ant eater. Now these 2 mammals, Instead of giving birth to live young ones, they lay eggs like birds. So they lay eggs, then wait for the eggs to hatch. Then from there, they take care of the young ones just as the other mammals. So that is the first special group of mammals. The second special group of mammals are what we call flying mammals. Flying mammals. Now, these mammals have wings and therefore they fly like birds. So somebody can easily mistake them to be birds, but they are not. They are mammal. An example is a bat. A bat is a flying mammal. It's a mammal, but has wings like a bird. So people have confused birds to be birds. They are not birds, they are mammals. So they fall under this group of special mammals because they have that special characteristic that other mammals doesn't have. So they fly. Another example is the flying fox. Flying fox. There is also another flying mammal. So under this group or under this grade, we are only supposed to look at those two. In fact, it's supposed just to be one, the bat. But of course, we have added that flying fox. The third group of these special mammals, not everybody calls them special mammals. It is me who calls them special mammals because they have different characteristics from the rest. So don't go into the books and start looking for the special mammals. You are not going to get them, but you will meet them having different characteristics. So another group here is what we call the sea mammals. These are mammals that live in the sea. People think that all animals that live in the sea are fish. No, we have different animals living in the water or in the sea. So one of them is the whale. Whale is a mammal. This whale does not have the ability to breathe inside the water because the only animals that can breathe inside the water are those animals with gills. That is either fish or a tadpole. So whale, that's why most of the time you will see whales coming on the surface of the water, then they blow the air. From there they breathe in, then they get back into the water. So they can't breathe in and out inside the water because they are not fish, they are mammals, and they use lungs to breathe, not gills. So any animal that does not have gills cannot breathe in water. So whale is a mammal, not a fish. Another example of a mammal that people confuse to be fish is a dolphin. A dolphin. That's why I wrote that to be an example of a mammal. Dolphin is not a fish, only that it lives in water, but it is not a fish. It is a mammal. So if you look at those two animals are animals that live in the water. And we also have another one called the seal. They are only those three. According to this grade, we are only allowed to look at those three mammals that live in the sea. So they are called sea mammals. Now, anytime you see a dolphin and a shark, most people think that both of them are fish because the shark is a fish, dolphin is a mammal. So all these are mammals, only that they have different or unique characteristics that others doesn't have. So that is for the what? For the mammals. Let us look at the second group of vertebrates. second group of vertebrates, and that is the birds. The birds. Number 2, birds. You can give examples of birds. There are many. You can talk about the hen, chicken. You can talk about the ducks. You can talk about the doves, the ostrich. You can talk about the eagle, the ox. All those are birds. So birds are very many. Now, characteristics. They also have very few characteristics. Number 1, all birds lay eggs. So underline the word all. All birds lay eggs. There is no bird that does not lay eggs. They lay eggs, and the eggs they are laying are fertilized. So they lay fertilized eggs. That is a common characteristic of all birds. Another thing, their bodies are covered with feathers. Bodies covered with feathers. So they have feathers on their bodies. And at the same time, they have scales on their legs or their feet. Their feet are covered with scales. So on their legs, there are scales. On the body, there are feathers. These animals have beaks instead of mouths. So what these animals use for feeding is not the mouth. So they don't have mouth. Those things are called beaks. So we say they have beaks instead of mouth. They have beaks instead of mouth. So don't say the chicken are feeding using their mouth. Those are called beaks. Then these are around 4 characteristics, and they are as simple as that. So we say that all birds lay eggs, their bodies are covered with feathers, they have scales on their feet or their legs. Lastly, they have beaks instead of mouths. An example of birds I've given, there are so many. Then from there we move to the third group, that is the third group. Let's talk about the reptiles. Reptiles. Now these animals have the following characteristics. Before we look at those characteristics, let us look at examples of those reptiles. So examples of these reptiles are animals like crocodile. Crocodile. We have tortoise or tortoise. We have lizards. We have chameleon. We have snake. So that's also a very long list. They are not only this one, there are so many examples of reptiles. So these are a few ones that we have picked. So we have talked about crocodiles, we have talked about tortoise, lizards, chameleon, snakes. Those are some of the examples of reptiles. Now, their characteristics. Very few characteristics, very few. Number 1 characteristics of reptiles, their bodies are covered with scales. So remember, for the birds, scales on the legs. So these ones, their bodies are covered with scales. That is characteristics number 1. All reptiles lay eggs. Another characteristics, there's no reptile that gives birth to a live young one. All of them lays eggs, and of course they lay fertilized egg on land. Let me put that one here. They lay eggs on land. The reason why I'm saying that, there are some reptiles that spend a lot of their time in water, like the crocodiles. So some people think that crocodiles doesn't come out. They only spend most of their time in water simply because when they are inside the water, they can easily get their food because of their speed and that body size. So if they are in water, they can easily move faster than when they are on land. So most of the time you will find crocodiles on spending their time in water. But when they want to lay their eggs, they come on the dry land. So there is no reptile that lays eggs in water. Whether it is spending a lot of its time in water, like the crocodiles, like some snakes, by the end of the day, they will come to the dry land and lay their eggs, then get back to the water. Another thing, they breathe through the lungs. These ones also breathe through the lungs. So they don't have gills. That means they can't survive. They can't breathe in water. So they will have to come out on the surface of the water, then get oxygen, then get back into the bottom of the water. That is characteristics of reptiles, as few as that. So we have said their bodies are covered with scale, they lay eggs on land, they breathe through the lungs. Now let me move to the next group, that is amphibians. Amphibians, that is group 4. Now this group, some people confuse this group, especially the examples of members of this group and the reptiles. This group, their members are very few. One of them is like a toad. A toad, we have a frog, we have a newt, and we have salamander. In fact, as far as this level is concerned, we are only supposed to learn about those 4 examples of amphibians: the toad, the frog, the newt, and the salamander. So don't add any. Examples, these are the examples now. Characteristics of these things. Characteristics of amphibians. Now, this is the group of animals that have the ability to live both on land and in water. They live on land and also in water. Let's talk about live both on land and also in water. So this is the only group of animals that can survive in the 2 environment. So they can find their home on dry land and they will survive. They can as well go into the water and they can still survive. On their bodies, there's nothing. They have what we call moist skin. Have moist skin. So we say their bodies are covered with moist skin. So they have moist skin with no scales. So there are no scales here. So these animals, because they can survive both on land and in water, they breathe through almost 3 parts. They breathe through, number 1, These animals can breathe through their mouth. They can as well breathe through their skin, and they can as well breathe through their lungs. Now, the young ones of amphibians, that is the tadpoles, the young one of amphibians breathe through the gills. Now, this group of animals, they also lay eggs. But these ones, as much as they can survive both on land and in water, when they want to lay eggs, they lay their eggs in water. So these ones, when it comes to laying eggs, they lay eggs in water, and that egg is unfertilized. So they lay unfertilized eggs. They lay unfertilized eggs in water, not on land. So these ones, the reason why the young ones of these animals breathe through the gills is that the eggs are laid inside the water, they are fertilized inside the water, then they hatch inside the water. So the young ones will survive in the water like fish. So during that young age, they have gills. The young ones, like the tadpoles, they have gills. So they will breathe, use their gills to breathe until they reach certain age. Then when now they can now be called either frogs or turds, then they will start using these other body parts for breathing, like the mouth, the skin, and the lungs. So young ones of amphibians breathe through the gills. They have gills. So these are the characteristics of these animals called amphibians. So don't confuse them with reptiles. They are totally different. They are totally different. The last group here is what we call the fish. Our last group, group 5, the fish. Under this group, now let us give an example, and I'm starting with the shark, so that we can now see that the shark and the dolphin are not in the same class. Dolphin, we said, is a mammal. Shark is here. You can give other examples of fish like the tilapia. Can talk about mudfish. All the examples of fish that you know. Now, characteristics of fish. The characteristics of fish are as follows. Now, this ones, the first characteristic is that they breathe through the gills, or we say live fully in water. So these ones, throughout their lifetime, they are in water. So they live in water. Number 2, they breathe through the gills. They breathe through the gills. Of course, their bodies are covered with scales. Bodies covered with scales. They also lay eggs. They lay eggs in water. These ones cannot come out. So there are two groups of animals that lay eggs in water. That is the fish and the amphibians. And of course, they lay unfertilized egg. Their eggs are fertilized externally. Now, that is the last group of vertebrates and their characteristics. So we have taken time and we looked at them one by one from the first group to the last. So it is upon you to always go through them. You can have your small notebook, you note them down for your revision purposes. Otherwise, that brings us to the end of that lesson. That was grade 5, Science and Technology, under the substrand vertebrates. Keep on watching and keep on subscribing, share and like as many as you can. Thank you for watching.